I think the first thing to understand is that this is a long journey. So deciding to measure emissions or even to have targets is not an instantaneous short-term journey. So the first thing is really understanding that you need to start somewhere. You don't need to be perfect right from the start, and that you need to incrementally improve on that. And why Scope 3 is so important is that they usually would make up more than 50% of all emissions for any organisation, sometimes as high as 80%, depending on the industry. So whilst measuring Scope 1 and 2 are your more directly caused emissions and therefore more easily influenced, Scope 3 is important because of the materiality of Scope 3 in terms of emissions generation. It's also more difficult because what Scope 3 is generally supply chain and needing to influence your supply chain. Yeah, so I think ESG is an art as much as a science, which means that we need to be aspirational, but we need to back up that aspiration with some science behind that. And why we need to be aspirational is that the world is changing, and the world will continue to change, and technology will need to continue to change, and systems will continue to change. And many of the goals are very long term, maybe 5, 10, 20 years and beyond. We don't know what all of those changes are going to be, which is why we need to be aspirational. We need to be science-based because if we just have aspirational targets, then we may never get there, and we may never know that we're not going to get there until it's too late. So we need to have a combination of short-term science-based targets, medium-term, which is probably a combination of science and a little bit of aspiration, and then longer-term goals, knowing that we'll need to continue to evolve each year with our strategies to meet those aspirational goals. The short-term goals, I think, are important to be science-based because we can track and learn from what we're doing and see what works and what doesn't. So in the case of the organisation I work for example, we thought that implementing of updated air conditioning HVAC systems would reduce our emissions by a certain percentage. And when we actually implemented the first one, we saw that there were a lot of offsetting factors that whilst it may have been more efficient, it was also more powerful, more energetic, worked a little better. So the actual impact on emissions was not what we thought it was going to be. So we need to change our strategy. So by implementing things short term with science-based, you can kind of test what the real impacts are and then modify the strategy to be able to achieve those.